Miss Haben Girma. She is, at the age of 27, already one of those people who doesn't really need an introduction, but I'm still going to tell you about all of her accomplishments anyway because they're just so incredible. So Haben has been named as Forbes 30 Under 30. She is also a featured TED speaker. She became close buds with President Barack Obama when she was honored with the White House Champion of Change. And last but not least, she is the first ever deafblind person to graduate from Harvard Law School. So not the first woman, but the first person. So she isn't able to hear or see us right now, yet she has a law degree from Harvard, and she is a featured, prominent, global public speaker. So without further ado, I'm going to welcome Haben Girma to join us on stage.
Good evening. Thank you for that amazing introduction. I've enjoyed meeting several people so far, and this room is full of brilliant, shining individuals. And I'm thrilled to be here. As you heard from Allison, I'm deafblind. And it's really easy to be a public speaker when you can't see the audience. I also can't really hear audience feedback, but I want to be able to connect with people. The whole point of events like this is to facilitate connection. So I have a solution. Jody and Carla are sitting on the front, and they have a wireless keyboard, and they're typing descriptions that are displayed in Braille on a digital Braille display. So they're watching you. And they're telling me if people are laughing, if people are smiling, if people fall asleep. There's always an alternative solution. There's always a way to do something. And when we're creative, we can find that and make changes in our community. My name is Haben. The name Haben comes from Eritrea, a small African country. Ethiopia borders to the south, and to the north is the Red Sea. My mother grew up during the war between Eritrea and Ethiopia. Violence in the streets, lots of fear, spilling even into classrooms. Stories helped instill hope among the students. My mom read many stories. Stories influence the organizations we build, the products we design, and the futures we imagine for ourselves. Stories told my mother, America's the land of opportunity. America's the land of freedom. And inspired by stories, she took the dangerous journey walking from Eritrea to Sudan and spent several months in Sudan as a refugee. And a refugee organization helped her come to the United States. Several years later, older, wiser, my mother realized it's not geography that creates justice. It's people that create justice. Communities create justice. All of us face the choice to accept oppression around us or advocate for justice. As the daughter of refugees, a Black woman, disabled, many stories say my life doesn't matter. I choose to create my own stories. If the dominant stories are hurtful, we have the power to tell our own stories and create our own futures. There's always an alternative. I can't see or hear, but I find other ways. For example, while I can't read print, I can read Braille. People with disabilities are innovative and have been developing alternative solutions for hundreds of years. All around the world, deaf communities have developed sign languages. In the United States, the dominant sign language is American Sign Language. In France, it's French Sign Language. Across the pond, in the UK, they have their own completely different language, and it makes no sense to me. They call it British Sign Language. Another form of communication is print on palm, writing signals on palms. There's also dance. Dance is a form of communication. I found that through partner dances like salsa, waltz, swing, I can feel the music through the people I dance with. And then there's the communication system that I described to you with the keyboard and the Braille displayed. That's another way for people to connect. When people first meet me, the first question is usually, how do you communicate? The second question is usually, have you heard of Helen Keller? Yes, actually. Helen Keller was a brilliant deafblind woman who lived from 1880 to 1968. She advocated for women's rights, racial equality, disability rights. She spent her whole life advocating. And people think she overcame disability. Disability is not something we overcome. It's society that creates barriers. People create barriers. And it's up to all of us to remove those barriers. Helen was successful when communities chose to be inclusive. She went to Radcliffe College. They provided books in Braille. They provided interpreters. That was a community that chose to practice inclusion. When Helen was looking around for colleges, Harvard wouldn't admit her. Back then, Harvard was only for men. Helen's disability didn't hold her back. She was brilliant and hardworking. Her gender didn't hold her back. Women are brilliant. It was the community at Harvard that chose exclusion. It's people that create barriers. As another example, Helen's community wouldn't allow her to experience marriage. Helen fell in love, secretly got engaged, but her family forcibly prevented her from marrying the person she loved. Her disability didn't stop her from feeling love. She wrote extensively about love, but her family, her community, created insurmountable barriers. We've come a long way since Helen's time. More and more communities celebrate all the different ways we can express love. Harvard eventually made the smart decision to open its doors to women, people of color, and people with disabilities. There's still so much work we need to do. When I was in college, I asked myself, what can I do to be the change I want to see in the world? What can I do to make my community more inclusive? I went to Lewis and Clark College. It's a small college in Portland, Oregon. The cafeteria served as a central place for people to hang out and relax between classes. You would enter, and along 3 of the walls were large windows showcasing Portland's rain. Along the 4th wall were food stations. People would enter, browse a menu, and then go to their station of choice. The menu was only in print, so blind students like myself couldn't access the menu. I went to the cafeteria manager and explained, this menu's in print. My blindness is not the problem. Disability is never the problem. The problem is that we need this menu. We need information in multiple formats. Could they provide the menu in Braille or send it in electronic format that would be accessible to my Braille computer? He told me they're very busy and I needed to stop complaining and be more appreciative. I don't know about you, but if there's chocolate cake at Station 4 and no one tells me, I'm not feeling appreciative. Back then, I was a vegetarian. I really needed to have access to food information. Sometimes I would wait in line for 20 minutes only to discover they were serving hamburgers. It was very frustrating. I have cane travel skills. I could use my cane to navigate the cafeteria. I have a seeing eye dog. I can navigate spaces with my seeing eye dog. The disability wasn't the problem. The problem was not providing information in accessible formats. If they gave me the information, I would know Station 1, hamburgers, Station 2, tortellini with cheese. Then I would know to skip Station 1 and go straight to Station 2. But I didn't have the information. The first few months, I tolerated the situation. I told myself, at least I have food. Many people around the world struggle for food. Who am I to complain? My mother spent several months in Sudan as a refugee, and I was blessed to get an education in Oregon in the United States. Who am I to complain? Lots of blind students struggle to get access to Braille books, but my college did an excellent job providing me books in Braille. Why should I complain about the food? Maybe the manager was right. Maybe I should stop complaining and be more appreciative. I talked to my friends, and they reminded me, it's my choice. It's our choice to accept oppression around us or advocate for justice. If we want to shatter the glass ceiling, we need to address the small forms of oppression. They add up. And when we work on addressing these small forms of oppression, we build up the skills to address larger forms of oppression. I did research, I talked to role models, and I learned that in 1990, Congress passed the Americans with Disabilities Act. The ADA prohibits discrimination against people with disabilities. Places like that cafeteria are required to provide access to people with disabilities. I went back to the cafeteria manager and explained that under the law, he is required to provide the menu in accessible formats. And if he refuses, I'm going to sue. I had no idea how I would do that. I was just 19. I couldn't afford a lawyer. But I was determined to do something, to try, until I could make change to make my community more inclusive. It turned out that framing the issue as a civil rights issue, rather than a favor, changed the culture in the cafeteria. They immediately started providing the menu in accessible formats. Life became delicious. The following year, another blind student came to the college. He didn't have to fight for access. He had immediate access to the cafeteria menu. I learned that my advocacy makes a difference and helps other people. and it inspired me to go to law school. In 2010, I entered Harvard Law School. They told me, "We've never had a deafblind student before." And I told Harvard, "I've never been to Harvard Law School before." We didn't have all the answers, but using assistive technology and high expectations, we managed to find ways. We tried one thing. If it didn't work, we tried another thing until we found solutions. And I graduated in 2013. I now work as an attorney, teaching different organizations that access is a community effort. And when we make those changes, we all benefit. You tap into a larger community. There are 57 million Americans with disabilities in the United States. And around the world, there are 1.3 billion people with disabilities. It's a huge market. So you gain a larger audience. You drive business when you reach more people. And accessibility benefits us in other ways. Facebook found that when you add captions to video, you increase view time for your videos by 12%. So the whole community benefits. Because I work as an advocate and I'm here, and the whole point of this event is for you and your time, we're going to open it up to questions. And people are welcome to ask me questions about advocacy, about civil rights, about disability, about chocolate cake. So the way we're going to do questions is I have a keyboard here. We have a second keyboard that's connected to the Braille display, and you can type on the keyboard, and I'll read what you're saying. I'll read it out loud for the audience to know what you're saying. And Allison is gonna choose 5 people to come up. So if you have a question, raise your hand and come up.
All right, so I'm gonna select 5 people. Raise your hand if you have a question. This one? Yes, right here. Beautiful. Okay, so what I'd love for you guys to do is quietly just come over to the side of the stage right here and just form a line, and then we'll one by one bring you up onto the stage. We'll have you sit in this chair and just type your question. You're not gonna be able to see what you're typing, but Haben will read it faster than you can type it, pretty much. It's kind of mind-blowing. So what I'm gonna do is demonstrate right now. I'm gonna type a question, she'll read it back, and then she'll answer.
Hi, it's Allison. Laughter.
Also, she can totally read all of your typos, so don't stress.
How did you learn to speak? I have taken many lessons in public speaking. Penny Kreitzer is a voice coach up in the San Francisco Bay Area, and we've worked on public speaking because it's a way to deliver a message. A lot of my skills are attributed to good teachers throughout my education. And I think if more people with disabilities had access to great teachers, we'd see more people with disabilities in our communities succeeding and leading organizations. Thank you. Bringing the next person up. Bring it on.
All right. Hi, come on up. So guys, Maxine is up here. This is our seeing eye dog, just so you're aware. She's just right here. So be careful of Maxine. Hi, tell me your name.
True. Like Truman. It's really nice to meet you.
Truman, hey. Okay, go ahead.
Hello, I'm so nervous. Don't Anna, you can relax. You inspired me. What's your name? I am True. Good to meet you, True. Biggest fear in my life is reading out loud. Now this tops it. I have dyslexia, and everyone used to make fun of me. I can't type or spell well, but you are making me feel smart and a good speller. My question is, exclamation mark. When a stranger comes up to you to say hello, how do you do it without a keyboard? That's a really good question. Before I answer your question, I want to say I have lots of friends with dyslexia, learning disabilities, all types of disabilities. My goal here is to connect with people. So I don't care about typos. As far as the audience knows, you don't make any mistakes. Now on to your question. Remind me, what was your question? When a stranger meets you and they want to say hello, and they don't have this keyboard, what is the correct approach? So my philosophy is to try to connect with people in whatever form and manner is available to us. There are a lot of people who wave, but I don't see it, or they shout hi, and I don't hear it. And those are missed opportunities. If you don't know, try something. So you could come over and touch my arm. You can come over and some of my friends when I was in law school would shout at my guide dog and call her over. So there are lots of different solutions. Some people tweet and say, "Hi, Haben, I just saw you crossing the street." So there are many different ways. I don't want people to feel pressure to try to do something the correct way. Just try. It's all about your intentions and your attitude rather than following some arbitrary rules.
Thank you, True. Thank you. Next up, and let's try to keep it short and sweet, guys, so we don't have unlimited time, unfortunately. Hi. How are you, friend?
I'm good, friend.
What's your name?
Mike.
Hi, Michael. Go ahead and type your question.
Hello. You're amazing. And I love your dog. What did she do? just very sweet. And what's your name? Mike. Thank you, Mike. The dog's name is Maxine, and she appreciates your compliment. So here's my question. As a person who can see and hear, when I'm alone and thinking, I see things in my mind or hear a conversation in my head. But you have never seen or heard anything. So when you are thinking about something, what happens in your mind? How does that work? Knowledge can be accessed in many different ways. By sight, by sound, taste, touch. When I travel, when I experience things, touch, smell, taste, those are the ones I tap into. So when I remember an experience or I think of a person, I think of their stories. I think of our shared experiences. What happened? What foods? What smells? What flowers were in the air? So there's so many ways to access the world and connect with people. And if sight and sound aren't present, those other ways of connecting with the world are still present. And those are what I use. Do you hear words in your mind? Like when you are thinking, through a problem or legal problem? That's a good question. There's a way of knowing something without being able to quite put your finger on how you know something. Sometimes you intuitively know something. And when it comes to thoughts and dreams and emotions, sometimes it's just known and felt without being clearly articulated. So it's kind of like that. Thank you for your inspiration. Hug, absolutely.
Thanks, Mike. So now, every time Haben smells Palo Santo, maybe she'll think of us. All right, who wants to join us next? Come on up. Come on up. Yeah, one last one. Hi, how are you? Go ahead and take a seat. Tell us your name.
I'm Shannon.
Hey, Shannon. Do you want to let Haben know that we're just going to take 3 questions? Actually, I guess Jody can probably let her know. Or she'll figure it out because she is pretty on top of it.
We are going to take 3 questions.
So this is the last one.
So I'm last.
Make it a
What's
good
your
one.
name? Shannon. You're very lucky to have the last question, Shannon. Yay! So, what do you do do you ever lose your patience? when you are experiencing difficulty having access to things you deserve or need? That's a tricky question. Sometimes I feel impatient or angry, and then I catch myself and think, wait, who am I to feel entitled? My mother went through a lot of struggles. There are a lot of people who struggle. Why not me too? Struggle is part of life. So I try to accept struggle as a natural part of life that makes us all stronger. And I've developed a lot of skills going through law school, having to advocate for myself and people in our community, and I've become very good at advocating. So when a difficult situation arises, I usually have tools in my toolkit to handle the situation. So impatience does come, but I have ways to tackling it. So awesome. You are inspiring and really touched me. I cried a bit. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So that's going to wrap up our Q&A session for right now. So now that we all... Please. Haben, you are amazing.